going to continue our conversation. Some developments in the Trayvon Martin case today, both an apology and, more significantly, a bail that was not only set but also met, and Mr. Zimmerman now out for the time being, at least, a free man. All right, let's bring in the calls, and again, our panel here is going to jump in, and we'll get more of your reaction. Let's begin first with Lorraine. She's calling us from Bayshore. Lorraine, thank you. You're on the line. Go ahead.
Yes, hi. Good evening, everyone, and I just really want to make it quick. I don't think the apology was enough. If he just would have listened to his commanding officer, he wouldn't even have to be apologizing. You have to follow the chain of command, and he definitely disobeyed, and his bail is it's just extremely low.
Though I will point out, he's not a cop, he's a neighborhood watch captain, so he wasn't really under orders to do anything. He was certainly under the advice of police to leave Trayvon Martin alone.
You know, I'm curious, Mayo, if you're prosecuting this case, the racial component to this, we played part of a interview that was on CNN one morning. Remember that guy? And it was the former watch commander. I don't know if you saw this. And they said, well, tell me about Zimmerman. He goes, oh, he's a great guy. We had 8 robberies, and they were all young black youths. I said, well, how many arrests were they? Oh, there was 1, but you know. So, you know what? So my point is, do you try to put the jury into what was in the mind of Zimmerman, that he profiled the kid because of what he was wearing, what he thought he was, and then as a consequence, a trigger got pulled? Or do you just say, I don't care if the guy was green, orange, or purple, it doesn't make a difference. A kid's dead because a guy didn't follow directions from the police. How would you work into the reality that race did play a role in terms of the fatality?
As a prosecutor, I would want to definitely get into the fact that he had stopped 8 people and only 1 of them led to an arrest. It goes to show a predisposition for him to go after young black men. But also, as a prosecutor, I would want to hone in on the fact that it really shouldn't matter at this point with respect to what race that person was, gender, or anything else, because at the end of the day, he's there as a neighborhood watch person, and he is there to report what he believes is crime and to hopefully rely on the police to come and do their job. And when the police advise him not to follow this young man, and he does it anyway, that's a cause for concern. I believe even he may have been carrying a firearm, which he was not authorized to carry in connection with the rules and regulations of being a neighborhood watch. So all of those things come into play. But I think that it comes into play, it happens to be, in my opinion, a case that probably is motivated at least in part by race. But it's also a case where even if they were of the same race, it's conduct that on its face at least appears to be improper, and which led to a young man's death unnecessarily.
Real quickly, we heard the feds talking at a certain point here that if it was a hate crime that they'd get involved. Would you say this is a hate crime?
Well, I'm the former chief of the bias crime unit in Westchester County, and one of the things that's interesting about hate crimes is that you can't always look only to the language or lack thereof. You have to look at the course of conduct in its entirety. And here it seems that, assuming these tapes are accurately, have been accurately played, and we know there's been some modification of the tapes, but it seems as if Mr. Zimmerman's referring to Trayvon Martin as these types of people. And when you take that in connection with the fact that he stopped at least 8 other people, only 1 of whom was arrested, and we don't know what that person was arrested for, it could be considered a possible hate crime. Now again, whether you would bring that as a hate crime would be determined by a host of other factors, and you'd really want to weigh the totality of circumstances.
Let me see what Gail's got to say. Gail's calling us from Pennsylvania. You're on the line, Gail. Go ahead.
Yes, I think it's an absolute disgrace that President Obama got involved with this case at all. He had no business getting involved in it, or it wouldn't have come to this point.
Well, to be fair, if we're looking at the actual timeline, Andrew, President said that if he had a son, he'd look like Trayvon. This was after the case was a national story.
This was about 3-4 weeks after the killing itself, and only after it boiled up to the surface and became a national issue.
And see, this is what happens a lot. There's so much misinformation. The president didn't initially respond on his own. The president was asked a question by a member of the White House press corps. That's how he got involved. There's a huge difference.
Though, to be fair, he could have avoided answering
He
the
could
question.
have avoided answering the
and
question.
that would have been 1,000
and that-
times worse.
and that would have been 1,000 times worse.
Putting it out there. I'm just putting it out
I know
there.
you are. But
Do you know
I'm
what he's
saying it
doing?
is worse.
He's caked that soon. He just stirs it up. Now let me ask you, and we're going to get to more phone calls in our next segment on this same subject. In the classroom, this case must have come up. Is the principal case that this was a flashpoint on race in this country, or was it about stand your ground? What's that generation say what happened in Florida was really about?
You know, it's not about the stand your ground law. There's a common belief that this is about profiling. You could be white, but you could be Latino and you could be black, and think that a young black man is threatening. As long as you have that feeling, you have that sense. It happens among our people just as well. That this was about profiling, and you know whether you're young or old, a lot of folks who may not remember the actual details of it, but they do remember that there was a young man in the Bronx who subsequently was shot 41 times, and that brought this issue to a head. And this is probably one of the more modern cases of this. It happened not in New York, but in Florida. But because of social media, because of Twitter, because of the president's response, and because of all the activity around this shooting, it has become very present in people's minds.
Richard, you know, one question that you have the prosecutor here that I'd like to ask, because I'm very curious about this. In making your case as a prosecutor, if you were former prosecutor, but still a prosecutor.
He's making money now. Let's just stop right there, all right?
Would you put on the stand the lead homicide detective from Sanford that wanted Mr. Zimmerman charged? Would you get into his training of thought as an expert of why he wanted him charged?